Was how much, if any, contact did Tennessee have with you? And obviously, as their process played out, it went in that direction. But what was that like for those few days?
It's always interesting whenever jobs open up, and the how much contact Tennessee had. I didn't have any direct contact with Tennessee. I was really happy for Josh Elander, who's he's an assistant coach there who got the job. As a longtime assistant coach, I always pull for guys to get jobs like that. And Tony going and being a manager in the major leagues, who knows? Maybe that sets a precedent for college coaches to do it. I think probably Pat Murphy might have helped a little bit of that too, paved that road with the Brewers, going from the Arizona State deal to being in the major leagues for a while. So I don't know, maybe that becomes a trend in time. Time will tell with that. But, happy for Josh and happy for Tony. Got an opportunity he want to take.
Yeah, right. Waz, can you just take me through this year's team and your offseason, how you tried to attack it, especially losing so many starters to the professional ranks, how you tried to attack this offseason from a freshman recruitment, a transfer portal, into building this roster and this offense?
Well, you try to get the best players you can, regardless of whether they're portal kids or junior college, high school kids, and we got some good ones. We're replacing a lot. We're replacing 50% of our wins on the mound. And we're replacing, I think it's probably close to 2/3 of the home run total that we lost from a year ago. And so there were really good players here that played really well a year ago. And so we need to replace those guys for sure. I think we've looked at that as best we could. We were really aggressive in trying to go after everybody out there. Unfortunately, in our game today, it's not just about giving a kid a full scholarship and having them here on a good visit. There's a lot more that goes into recruiting these days, specifically donor related, NIL related, rev share related, and those are really competitive recruiting adventures for high school and for portal guys these days, more so than ever before.
A lot to sort through this time of year with the roster, obviously, but to new staff doing that, can you just kind of break down what your staff looks like, what the strengths are of some of the new faces?
Yeah, I think, with Matt Floor now coming in and taking over the pitching, he's going to be assisted by, Dan Straley as a director of pitching. He's in the non-coaching position, but he was a guy that played a long professional career, long major league career, who's actually attending University of Oregon as a student now, which is great. And so his wisdom will be added to our staff. Travis Buck replaces Sean Harling as our operations director. Travis is a really talented player. When I recruited him, from Eastern Washington, he went to Arizona State, played for Pat Murphy. He's our director of ops now. He just left the job. I think the latest job he had was at Loyola Marymount as their hitting coach, and he's in a non-coaching capacity. But again, his wisdom is really handy to have around. Tim Cisnera is he's moved into like a player development role, which is where Brett Thomas was. Brett Thomas is now moved into an assistant coach and a coaching role. So the guys who have coaching responsibilities, myself, Brett Thomas, Jack Martyr, is the hitting coach and recruiting coordinator. Brett will assist him with the hitters, also work with outfielders. I take over the infielders for Marcus Hinkle, who's left, and to spend more time with his family and pursue a different opportunity that he has. And we're going to miss Marcus. We love him. And then, like I said, Matt Floor taking over the pitching side of it, which is a huge win for us. A lot of people have been trying to get Matt for a lot of years out of the University of San Diego, and he's just been a tremendous developer of talent. And quite candidly, he didn't get the best talent at San Diego. We got good talent, but he didn't get the very, very top end talent. And he was developing as well, if not better than anybody on the West Coast with the pitchers that he's been able to put out here recently. So those are all big deals. Gavin Grant remains in a non-coaching position. He's our camp coordinator. He's on my staff. Love to keep him around as long as I can, being a Duck and a really good baseball mind as well.
Thanks.
Getting back to the personnel management side of things and the business side of things, was how critical has the formation of Diamond Ducks been, and what it's able to offer you, and how close are you guys to being able to offer 34 and at least get to that level in a sport that now, when one conference is at a very different economic area for personnel acquisition, how important is it having an operation to at least get you close to, if not to the full 34, to keep you competitive?
Without it, we don't have a chance.
Right. You mentioned the turnover in particular on the pitching side. Just how much does experience like Ian and Colin and even Will, who have rotational experience, provide as a bridge from last year's rotation into this year's rotation?
I didn't understand the question, right? You want to hit it one more time?
Just in terms of new pitching coach,
Yeah.
you lose 50% of your wins on the mound.
Yeah.
Having experienced pitchers that have twirled the ball for you, Ian Umlaut, Colin Clark on the hill, how does having those guys as a bridge from last year's rotation into this year's rotation help the new guys into the system and even maybe Coach Flo in terms of the acclimation into this year's pitching staff?
Well, I don't know. Every year's different. Having those guys back is really good because they're good pitchers, and you want as many good pitchers as you can down there in that stable. So having those guys back is great. And there's some real leaders that you mentioned. Ian Umlaut, Colin Clark. I mean, those guys are real leaders. They pitched meaningful innings for us and did really well. And so, yeah, I think they help pave a path. Ultimately, you're looking to just to bolster it as much as you can. So for us to add some of the pieces we were able to add, I think are really good. We didn't hit on all the pieces we were after. That's for sure. And the number of guys that we were after to try to bolster the staff. It's really interesting now with the portal how that goes. It's a lot, but nevertheless, there's whenever somebody that's an all-conference guy out there, whenever we lose a guy to the draft or something like that, and we have an opening, we're going to be as aggressive as we possibly can be. And whether we get them or not, it's not going to be from a lack of effort. We're going to do everything we possibly can within our means to go get a guy. And as our situation continues to improve with everything that we're able to offer, hopefully we'll be able to land more and more of the absolute best guys that are out there and available.
Seemed like there was a lot of buzz about your program coming in the wake of the draft, and some of the guys who were draft eligible, some of the incoming freshmen who are sounds like had a chance that way, but are going to make it to campus. So just what's your thoughts on kind of that group as they've arrived here and started working out?
It's a couple of really good ones. And I don't know, I'm probably going to miss a couple, but Braden Jackson was a guy that was, he's the USA team gold medal winning starting catcher and MVP of that group when he was in high school. He's a really talented catcher. He's gotten some hype for being one of the best guys in the country to show up to a college campus, and he looks like it. He's a big kid. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He's super talented. He's going to be able to hit the ball over the fence. He's like a 6'5" kid. He had to turn down a lot of money to get here. Angel Aya, same kind of deal, outfielder, really physical type player. I think fans are going to really enjoy watching that kid play. He's a guy that has a tremendous outfield arm. He's an above average runner, and he's got a swing that's a really nice swing, and he's going to be able to really develop that frame into being a dual threat kind of guy, a guy that can run a little bit, even though he's a long strider. I think he's going to be able to really run some, and he's going to be able to hit for power, especially as he gets older in our program. A guy like Owen Morgan doesn't get a bunch of the hype coming out of high school, although he had a tremendous high school career, especially his senior year. But he's come in and he's really kind of opened some eyes with some things that he's been able to do. And then there's some new players that we've had, a pitcher named Cal Scolari that really has a big arm. I think fans are going to really like what they see in him. Miles Costola, he came in from Gonzaga. You'd think he was their Saturday guy up there, left-handed guy that we had to win some battles to be able to get him to campus, but he's kind of a lower slot, kind of a sidearm lefty with a really good arm, amongst other guys. There's some good ones, Gabe Miranda to be able to come in. I mean, for us to lose Jacob Walsh, to the draft or being a senior, whatever, but no longer in our program. Big hole there. Keeping Dom Hellman, keeping Drew Smith, having Maddox Maloney and Ryan Cooney return, keeping Jack Brooks, even though he's not really a household name yet. He's a super skilled player that hasn't been a mainstay in the lineup largely because of injury so far. But those kind of guys are really handy players to be able to have, especially and even a guy like Burke Mabius that caught the lion's share of the innings for us last year. To have him return into catching position is really important.
Kind of touched on it there, but defensively in the field, just your development you saw from fall ball and kind of going into the next coming season.
Yeah, we're still going, right? We're still going, but I mean, probably the biggest things that I saw, you're losing Carter Garrotti, he wasn't a super unbelievable, awesome offensive kind of a player, but boy, was he defensively, right? He was spectacular defensively. And so having a hole there to fill that. Ryan Cooney actually has been playing a lot of shortstop head-to-head against Maddox. It's a heck of a battle. Both of them are really good. Maddox is getting a lot of hype, preseason hype, and he deserves it. He's really good. So those two kids are have separated themselves as the leaders on our infield. Kid named Gabe Miranda, who's a transfer kid who's come in here to assist with the loss of Jacob from the draft. He's done really good when he's been on the field. He's been an exceptional player. He can hit and he can defend really well. And so, those guys on the infield, I think are really important to us. Braden Jackson's been able to move around at third base as well, not only just a catcher. He looks like he's got a chance over there amongst other options. But yeah, I mean, there's been some development that's occurred clearly out there, but there's some nice pieces running around that have been fun to work with.
You speak a bit more about Coach Martyr and what he means to your coaching staff?
Jack's a really good coach. When I first came to Oregon, I think an eyebrow was raised when they said, "Who are you going to bring with you on your staff if you get the job?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to hire Jack Martyr." And they said, "Whoa, we are at Oregon. You can get anybody you want pretty much." And I said, "Yeah, the guy wants Jack Martyr." And he's only, I guess, made that statement come to fruition. I had a lot of belief in him because I got a chance to be around him and work with him. I watched him play all the way through high school and recruited him. And so I knew him really well, and I knew the kind of worker he'd be and how smart he was. And he's had a huge impact on the program, right? I mean, he's a really good hitting coach. He's a really good recruiter. He's getting a lot of publicity as he deserves. And he's really good at it. And so we're thrilled to have Jack on my staff. He's been tough to keep. A lot of the guys that are on my staff, they've had opportunities to leave, and like we tell recruits, I mean, when we do well, then there's going to be a lot of opportunities for basically the entire coaching staff to go other places, and there has been, and yet we still, by and large, are all still here intact. And you know what, Jack, Brett Thomas, Gavin Grant, those kind of guys. I mean, it's tremendous to have Tim Cisnera. These guys, some of them are non-coaching responsibility guys, at least in the short term. Hopefully the NCAA allows more guys on the field to coach, which there are rumors that may happen. These guys are just really good baseball people, and they've got their hearts tied into the University of Oregon because they played here or worked here or whatever. I mean, there's real allegiance here. And so it's not just a job for a lot of us. It's more than that. And we really want to finish something that we've started here, and we've made some commitments to some people that are largely responsible for bringing the program back about staying in this program until we can accomplish some goals, and we haven't accomplished all the goals that we set out to yet.
Two more James, right?
Not sure how many holes you have left to fill still on the schedule wise, but what is the impact to non-conference scheduling philosophy now that you're in the league, where in order to put yourself in position, you hope to host, potentially even host a super when it comes time, and unless other parts of the league take things a little bit more seriously, the net impact is going to be awfully difficult. So how do you go about changing non-conference scheduling where you still want to have some home games, but if you're going to put yourself in the best position, you probably have to go on the road or neutral site a lot?
Yeah, you've asked some interesting questions there. I'll try to unpack it best I can. We've talked about that long and hard. I mean, coming out of the Pac-10, the Pac-12, you did it one way, and it was a similar roadmap because really in our season, it's a 15-week season. The 15th week is your conference tournament, which leaves 14 left. And then of the 14 weeks, you got 10 that are in league, so 5 home, 5 road. And that's kind of a lottery, especially in an off-balance league like the Big Ten. And so you don't know who you're going to get on a given year, but you're going to play 10 conference weekends, so 30 total games there. And then your other 4 weekends, you've got 4 weekends that you can pick more or less who you're playing, right? So 3 of those weekends traditionally are going to start at the very front end of your schedule, and then there's going to be a bye weekend somewhere in the middle of that. The bye weekend in the middle is really kind of a survive situation. You're trying to schedule. A year ago, we scheduled Oregon State for that. And it's something that it worked out really well for us. We played really well against them, and we won those games. And so that helped us tremendously when it came to postseason resumes and stuff like that to be able to host. But mid-season buys are tough because mid-season buys, there are not a lot of conferences that have mid-season buys. So you're getting the best RPI team historically on a 5 to 10 year RPI average. You're trying to find that best team to be able to bring in to where you can play them or go on the road. So like this year in 26, we're going to Santa Barbara, who historically has had a very strong RPI on the West Coast, along with us and Oregon State and UCLA. So we're going there on the road this year. The first 3 weeks of the year, historically, what we've tried to do is had, last year was an anomaly. First, basically run through the Big Ten, and there was reasons why we stayed at home for all 3 of those weekends. Historically, what we'd like to do is play in a national tournament one of those 3 weekends, and we will this year. We'll play in the Vegas tournament versus Irvine, Arizona, and Vanderbilt in week 3. The other 2 weekends, ideally, you'd like to play, one of those weekends at home and one on the road. And so traditionally, that would be one of the road games would be against the home and home series that we have versus Santa Barbara. And then you play the best, the best scenario you could find when it comes to RPI for a non-conference home weekend. So you've got basically a neutral site, a road site, and a home site. So of those 4 weekends that you're not playing in the league, ideally we're going to be playing 2 of those at PK Park, and one in a neutral site and one on the road, to answer your question. So is it going to be enough with the Big Ten schedule is a question we've answered, and you hit on that. We're going to have to assess that on a year-to-year basis and see that if it is. I think the off-balance schedule in the Big Ten is going to probably make that an interesting topic, depending on who you do and don't play in the Big Ten every year. And the final piece of that, long answer, but it's been the hottest topic of conversation. So you hit on a couple of your questions have been on the biggest issues that we talked about. Well, there are a lot of teams that also won't play us right now, which is unfortunate. We've gone as far to try to go on the road and not even ask for return series against SEC teams, to just go and show up and play them at their place without even a guarantee to come. And we've been told no. And so, sometimes that's unfortunate because, you're trying to bolster your non-conference schedule the best you can. And yet some of those things don't make sense for other schools and other leagues. And so you do what's best for you. We're going to try to be aggressive, and we're going to try to be smart with our non-conference scheduling and assume that it puts us in the best possible place to be able to host. Ultimately, you got to win your games. And so we need to win our games.
That's question, right?
When you lose not only the production, but in particular the leadership of guys like Chase Meggers and Jacob Walsh and Carter Garate and Anson Arrows, where do Ryan Cooney, Maddox Maloney, Drew Smith, guys that are in their 3rd or 4th year starting for this program, how important is them for them to be leaders this season, and where have you seen them grow in their leadership regard from when you first got them here at Oregon?
Well, I think all the guys are leaders. And so, they've done a tremendous job. I'll use one example. We start our mornings every morning at 7 o'clock in the morning. They do academic stuff starting at 8. And so it's a good time to get a good meal in you and start your day at 7. And we haven't had anybody late to breakfast. And that's not coming from the coaches, that's coming from the players. It's not easy as a college student to be able to, and I see Coach Lanning's players, and they get here before we do. And it's probably not easy for a college age guy or gal to be able to show up for a 7 o'clock in the morning deal. The stresses of a student athlete, that's 2 full-time jobs that they have. It's a big deal. And now having to juggle social media, it's a lot with the fan interaction, and we love it, but you're talking about a lot on their plates. And so for them to be able to answer the bell every single morning, right away in the morning, it's an expectation we have, and the leadership in the locker room, whether it's those guys that you mentioned or others, they're doing it. And so, they've shown that standard, and they've shown an appreciation that those little details matter. And I've seen their play increase. They've gotten much more physical. We're going to be strong again. We're going to be big. We'll have a team that people look at and say, wow, these guys can probably hit the ball over the fence and do some things that are exciting. I think we'll have some more team speed this year, and maybe not be quite as one-dimensional as we were a year ago. But the leadership's been good. Those are some real core leaders from a year ago. And so even though they were only sophomores or so a year ago, they're still, they were good leaders a year ago. And I think they'll only have a better platform this year.